DKX, welcome to the Podcast Network. With a little bit of clarity on what's going on with the Rochester City School District, we have the president of the school board here, Camille Simmons. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic. And you brought a friend, Kareem McCullough?
Hello, how are you going?
Pretty good. All right, enough with the pleasantries.
Yes.
This is not going to be fun for everyone.
Right.
When you're talking about the budget, you're making very, very tough decisions.
Yes.
Could you take us through the first part of it that actually is out of your hands is the state. It's the state giving you, here's what you have now. Is that part of it?
Well, we're waiting. So the state, the Rochester City School District is highly reliant on state allocations, state funding, federal funding, but 85% about we're relying on for the decisions we make. And right now we're waiting on the state allocations to be confirmed so that we can depend on those dollars or not.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So once that comes in, Kareem, are there decisions that have been made yet? Or are you just basically looking at here's what we could potentially get, and this is what we need to make a decision on right now, whether or not this budget is right? It's
a little bit of both,
okay.
To be honest with you. They're looking at what they have now and what they need to make decisions on, and then they're looking at what's projected to come in from the state and then how that will impact their decisions. So they have to plan appropriately.
Yeah.
So it's taking in considerations of all those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so what might be, say, for example, a number of people that would be staffed at this place losing their jobs? It might not be 30. It might be 10. It might be. So there is still some room to sort of figure out exactly what programs are going to stay and what are going to go.
Right. It's a living, breathing situation right now. And, so that's a perfect example. For example, we have social workers, and at one point in the conversation, it was slated that about 30 social workers may be lost. And of course, social workers are critical to helping schools and children. And so you don't want to see anyone go. And so folks came out and they're saying we can't afford to lose our social workers. But the reality is there are dollars that we were waiting on to confirm if we could reinstate some of those positions. But where we stood, that was projected. We are currently in a place where approximately 7 social workers will be cut. We don't want to see anyone cut, but that 30 to 7 is a different conversation.
Obviously, we don't want to see anybody go. There is, though, a number of students that have left the district, too, that gets addressed as well. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll pitch off and then I'll let Commissioner McCullough kick in. But yes, declining enrollment is one of the key drivers. Like currently, for example, the Rochester City School District pays about $150 million in charter school tuition. We also pay for transportation costs.
For those charter schools?
Oh, yes. And that, I believe it's also inclusive of transportation costs for urban suburban students. So we have a declining enrollment situation. Private, parochial, charter schools are impacting some of the budget decisions that we have going on right now.
All right. And then for a lot of people that may not know all of that, how does that sort of break down when it comes to the budget when you're talking about kids that are in charter schools? Are they in the city of Rochester? Are they, we talk about urban, suburban, they're from Rochester, obviously they live in the city, but you have to make sure that they get to their location when it comes to urban, suburban going forward. That's an expense not in the everyday use of the classroom.
Right.
That's a different expense going forward that you guys have to take on, right?
Yes.
Right, as it stands currently.
Okay.
So that's an expense that we absorb, but we are not directly tied to any decisions that the charters make. So when sometimes I meet a lot of young people in the city of Rochester just out and about, and they'll be telling me about programs they wish they had or things that they'd like to do. And I'm like, what school do you go to? And it's not a decision that I have authority to make because they have a separate board and a separate decision-making mechanism. So I think that's a little bit misinformation out there as well.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about that, and I wanted to make sure that we have this forum for you guys to really get out there what is different of what you've heard and what is actually really taking place. So we were taking a discussion earlier about the state and what money is available. You don't know the total number yet, but a lot of people will throw out the fact that we're losing this school or we're losing that school. And there's a 5-year plan. You said this on the radio show. You guys are not just projecting for fall, you're looking 5 years in advance?
Yes, we have to. We have to make sure that we're planning so that we can have some type of sustainability, right? And in order to do that, just like with any business, you project what you're looking at as far as your expenses and your revenue. So we have to do that in order for us to ensure that we're still going to be here.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we have an idea of how we're spending and putting this money. And one thing Camille said is that we have to understand one of the drivers is charter schools. You know, it's over 150 million gone out of our budget.
Right.
So that's something people really need to understand too, that we don't have control over that whole 1.2 billion.
Right.
Yeah.
And to your point, you know, on the radio we talked about the misperception of the budget, this $1.2 billion budget, this $314 million fund balance. What do you mean you can't afford this? You have to cut classes and you're bleeding. But we do have these key drivers, again, declining enrollment, our healthcare costs. I believe a huge percentage of our budget absorbs around employees. So if we have a declining student enrollment, but we have not changed the staffing structure to accommodate the student enrollment that's declining, we're paying an enormous amount of healthcare. I'm sure your healthcare has gone up substantially. We've got over 6,000 employees in the Rochester City School District. So all of these costs are key drivers for why we have to make structural decisions that don't feel good. No one wants to have to do this, but they are the drivers for what we're facing.
Yeah, it's got to be a difficult decision going forward, and I want to make sure people are aware of some of these decisions were made prior to even you guys getting on the board as well. So the analogy I had earlier is kind of like you set that 5 years ago a table was set. And now here we are 5 years later, and we got to rearrange the plates and the forks and the spoons a little bit from what it was set before you got to the board. But now you have to project how the board is going to look, what it's going to look like 5 years before somebody else new will eventually get on the board. So it's kind of like you're dealing with somebody else's set table, and you might be setting the table for the future going forward. We also got into this, and I think we were discussing this earlier about how important it is for early learning and development. Pre-K, I know for Rochester has been really big. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think at one time on the show we were talking a bit about 3 to 3rd grade, how important it is to make sure that your kids are ready to learn from the age of 3 all the way up to the 3rd grade, that it sets the foundation?
It does. Yeah, so those are your foundational years. Those are the years that's going to help us determine where you're going to move forward to as you move forward in your educational career. So it's important that parents in the community understand that pre-K, 2nd, 1st, all the way up to 3rd grade matters a lot. And so how we lay out our budget, you'll see that there are things specifically for those areas. You know, and some of that money can't be touched.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's
yes.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for getting on that.
Yes.
I think we talked about this on the radio show, and I'm like, it just triggered for me. Some of the money that is allocated can't go to another program.
Exactly. So folks are like, why can't you just take this money? If you're struggling here, you've got all this money, take it and spend it over here. Just move it around. And no, if it's restricted, it is something that you can only use for what that purpose is. Grant dollars, federal funding, state funding, many of those dollars come in with restricted allocations and purposes. They're earmarked and predestined, and you cannot touch it. Some of the dollars coming in for this current pre-K conversation are specifically for just that.
I was talking with, I think, a Monroe County executive, I can't remember, it might have been Maggie Brooks, and she said the same thing. There are certain things that are earmarked for this and can't be used. I think there was, I don't know what yours is. I think she said at the time, I only have control over 20% of what is not allocated to go to a specific thing. So say, for example, there was something for mothers to help with childcare. That money can't be moved for something else. It has to go towards childcare. You're under the same sort of restrictions?
Yes. Our district is under the same restrictions. So our superintendent, Dr. Rosser, he has to make those very careful and deliberate decisions and then bring forth recommendations to the Board of Education to say, this is my best laid plan right now. Now the board can look at that plan and say, we don't agree with this plan. And that is the case for some members, and that is okay because we want to make fiscally responsible decisions. But we all have to work really hard because at the end of the day, we have to come to a vote. And our board's responsibility, is to pass that budget or pass a balanced budget. And so we have to have these conversations in tandem with the superintendent as a team to figure out what is the best way to go. And we don't always agree
Yeah.
on what that looks like.
And I know you mentioned it on the radio show. Every board member has a chance to really show what they feel. So it's not like you're speaking on the entire end of the board,
Right.
but you are, as a president, obviously going to be like, well, what do you think?
Right, right.
But that being said, that each board member is looking at it from maybe a different perspective than the two
Exactly.
of you guys
Yes.
are going forward. So I wanted to make sure that we threw that in there to make it seem like you're not speaking for everybody on these decisions. Now, there will be cuts that will come,
Yes.
and it will get uncomfortable.
Yes.
I do want to make sure that we're not moving off the topic of something's going to happen and a school might go or somebody might lose a position. That being said, is there anything else you want the people to know, the community to know about these decisions coming down?
Yeah. That, again, they are very sensitive. There are many people impacted in our school communities that are showing up every day on behalf of children. And the decisions that are made are not reflective of the lack of value. You know, and that's just hard. This is livelihood. These are connections, relationships, and that's what makes it so tumultuous. But I will say that, again, what we talked about is we're looking at 23.9 right now, $23.9 million in a gap that we have to figure out, or the superintendent is bringing recommendations on. Next year, or 2028, should I say, we're looking at $61 million. Potentially, right? 84.6 million in 2029, 109 million by 2030, and almost 130 million by 2031. That's a total of $400 million
Down the line.
If we don't continue to figure out how to right size and make careful, deliberate decisions on how our district can meet the needs of our declining student enrollment. And of course, we want to find strategies to bring students back, because there are some great things happening. When you hear about us in headlines, it's all of the destitute and desolate situations. It's this narrative that our children are not functioning. And our test scores show that they're not reading on grade level and things of that nature, but they also miss the pockets of beauty that exist. The doctors that come out of the Rochester City School District, the mayors, former mayors,
Absolutely.
right? And so there's a plethora of beauty and strength that comes from the Rochester City School District. And what we need to do is start making decisions that turns that narrative around and puts our children in the best place where we can stand proud, stand behind them, and showcase the real strength here in Rochester.
Yeah.
And we've got to take control of that narrative.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting. I know, Kareem, we were talking earlier on the radio show about being in the position of being on the board and understanding. You said it on the show that you understood part of this is not only just the kids and the everyday understanding and education and improving and connecting with parents. This is also a financial situation where you've got to look at numbers and make financial decisions. I think a lot of people on the board, and I hate to say this for all the board members, I think they want to do the best that they can for our kids in this community. But I think, I don't know if all of them knew how much of it involves crunching numbers. You mentioned that before on the show.
And I can't speak for other members, right?
Yeah.
But for myself, I understand that this is a district. We run, it runs as a business, but the business is education. And when you're running that, you have, there's two sides of it. There's the financial side, and then there's the human side. And in order to do both, you have to understand both. And coming in, that was something, now was it to this magnitude? No.
Yeah.
Right? But I understood that was a part of this position, and I have to be prepared for those difficult conversations. I have to be prepared for it not always going the way we may want it to go, but still, like Camille said, respecting the opinions and the positions of everyone on the board, so that we can do what's best for our community.
I wish you guys the best of luck. You and the entire board going forward. I know this is not going to be easy. But I honestly, I pray for you guys, because it's not. It can't be easy to make these decisions and then get ready for next year, which will be a bigger hill to climb, and being ready for next year financially, a bigger hill to climb. But I appreciate you guys coming in and setting sort of the record straight, being able to say exactly what you need to the community going forward. Hey, listen, this is 103.9 WDKX, the Wake Up Club, discussing real issues going on in the community every day, all day at WDKX Podcast Network.